Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, addicts of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you're here with us today. Wherever you're tuning in today, you're in for a treat. I have a guest on today that I've known for a few years now. He's a very huge inspiration to myself. He played 10 years as a pro NHL player. He was drafted in 1984 by the Washington Capitals, and he's the owner of the Aurora Tigers in the OJHL. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Jim Thomson. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm good, Doug. Again, thanks for having me on, and it's great to see you and great to be part of your show today.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, man. Listen, like I said, I've been following you for a little while now. I know your story a little bit, but the people that are watching this at home or at an office or wherever they are, they have no idea who Jim Thomson is. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and give us a little bit of experience, strength, and hope?
So I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. For those of you, I'm going to start with this. I became an NHL hockey player. When I tell you my upbringing, even my people that I grew up with, my friends and other families were amazed that I made it when I share, the story. So I grew up in a trailer park called Westview Village. And for those of you who've watched the Trailer Park Boys, that's how we grew up. It was very similar. And basically, my parents were both alcoholics. My dad was a sergeant in World War II. So after 4 years he came back from Europe, had this family. I'm the youngest of 10. My brothers were, rough dudes. They were bikers, and, I got introduced to drugs. But having the alcohol, lifestyle in the trailer, my mom drank every day. When my dad was home, he drank every day. I picked up the bottle at 12 years old. So I had a job, Doug. I first delivered newspapers in the trailer park. So that was at 9 years old, making money. And then at 12 years old, I got a job timekeeping at the local hockey arena. So I was making good money. I was timekeeping 3 games a night in the men's league, and found a bootlegger, and me and my buddy, we would drink Baby Duck champagne and smoke marijuana before we'd go to school every day. And that's, the lifestyle that I got into. And basically, there wasn't a lot going on in the trailer park. Thank goodness I was a good hockey player. My hockey continued through this destructive youth lifestyle. When I was 14, I got into high school, and we used to drive from Westview Village, the trailer park, to Spruce Grove High School, which was about 40 minutes. So on the way to high school, we're smoking big hash joints and, drinking champagne. And it was just out of control lifestyle. And so one day I came home, I just had enough, and it was inside me, where I said to my mom, my brother Frank was at the trailer, and I said, I want to quit high school. And what I'll do is I'm going to train for hockey, and I'll take correspondence. Back then was where you did homeschooling. And I would walk to the arena every day and play pickup with the men. And my mom was, no, my older sons quit school. And my brother Frank said, you might as well let him do it, because the road he's on right now, it's, he's going to end up quitting anyway. So she allowed me to do it. And my brother built me a little gym. We had no money. So he built me a little gym in my mom's living room. I used the coffee table as a bench press and, makeshift stuff. And I'd walk at 10 o'clock in the morning every day to go play pick up with the men. And remember, I did my own intervention in a sense at 14. So that changed my life. And then what happened was my dad was born in Markham, Ontario. So that later that year, he took me to meet my uncle and aunt, his sister Roma, and my uncle Jimmy. And my uncle Jimmy was a 25-year sober alcoholic. So he knew that I needed some help, and this whole, it was unbeknownst to me what was going on. So my uncle said, tell him to bring his skates. So I took my skates and I skated with the Markham AAA midget team. And they wanted me to stay. They liked what they saw, and I didn't end up staying. And I went back to Alberta to play. And then that year, that summer, they came out to watch me play. And that was the Toronto Marlboros of the OHL, Frank Bonello. and they invited me to camp. So my hockey journey started there. I ended up making the Marlies at a camp, lived with my uncle and aunt. I was 15 years old, 16. And then I ended up getting sent to their farm team, the Markham Waxers of the league that I own a team in now. It's called the Markham Royals now. And then, back to the Marlies for the last 2 years of my junior career, got drafted by Washington. And so my life has gone from, the trailer park life and using at 12 years old, getting out of it at 14. And then what happens is you always got that addiction in your body. So now I signed a contract with Washington. I end up in Binghamton, New York, living with two other guys. We're on our first NHL contracts. You're making money, and so you're doing your best to live the right way. But it was so $4.99 for a case of Miller, a 2-4 of Miller. So you found yourself drinking a lot and just kind of living this pro hockey life. And then what happens is you start, finding, things around, different types of drugs. And I flirted with things through my career. Ended up playing, as you said in the introduction, 10 years on 6 NHL teams, some minor league teams. And that journey, I was able to see a Stanley Cup final with Wayne Gretzky and the LA Kings. So some really, really exciting things in my NHL career. My first game when I got called up to play Pittsburgh, Doug, the late Brian Murray had me cover Mario Lemieux. So imagine your very first NHL game. And I get to the practice and he's like, tonight you're going to cover Mario. Well, that's like somebody covering Connor McDavid today. So that was an experience all in itself. And then we get to where I played in Anaheim, injured my shoulder, and had 2 operations, and my career is over. So I sit on my couch. They tell me not to go to the rink anymore, right? You're bought out. They bought me out of my contract, and I'm sitting there with my ex-wife and 3 young children and going, what am I going to do now? And that's kind of where things really unraveled, and I got depressed. And back then we didn't talk a lot about depression and mental health and anxiety, all these things I had going on. And my goodness, what was an addiction for me before, went crazy because I was drinking, instead of, maybe 3/4 of a bottle of wine funny, my drink of choice was Chardonnay wine, white wine. Get a big headache in the morning from that. So, I was up to 2 bottles a night, and then sneaking off to do some cocaine or whatever else I was doing. And, this is what happens, and that keeps going. And next thing you know, we're moving from California 5 years later back to Ontario. My ex-wife and I and my 3 kids, and my life is out of control. So one morning, my best friend there, his name was Richard, and he told me, he said, I need you to come over. I got to talk to you about something. This was on a Monday morning. So at this point, I'm a manager of a big sports facility, living the life of an addict, a quiet addict, and trying to, raise 3 kids, keep my marriage together, just what an addict does. So anyway, I go over to his place at 9 a.m. And what's ironic about this is I used the night before, so I didn't go to sleep. When you're on cocaine, you don't sleep. So I tried to get out of the meeting, and I'm like, Richard, I can't come. I gotta, this. He said, I need you to be here. So I went over to his house, walked into his basement, to my ex-wife, her parents. It was intervention. And it was surreal, let me tell you, right? And the interventionist was there, and my cousin. So I sat down between my former mother-in-law and father-in-law on a couch, and they all read the letter to me like you see on TV. And, I went from that, getting hit over the head with reality, into his pickup, and 4.5 hours down the road to Newgate 180. I got the tattoo right there, saved my life. In Merrickville, Ontario. Wow. And, we got 30 days of education. That was an amazing for me. And I recommend, for everybody who wants to surrender and they need that extra push, being the youngest of 10, Doug, I didn't get educated by my mom, right? Like by the time I came along, it was just like, I kind of did what I want, obviously by the stories from before. So I learned about relationships, I learned about love, I learned about family, and I learned about addiction. And it's a week, every week has a different theme. And
Mhm.
you're in class all day, and it was the best month I spent probably in my life learning how to live properly. So anyway, I get out of Newgate. I start a brand new life. I'm starting from ground zero after, as we call it, hitting rock bottom and being in the black hole. During that time, I was very close 3 times to taking my life, committing suicide. And I just felt, I called myself the monster. Looking in the mirror, I couldn't look at myself because of the monster who I became, and just figured my 3 kids would be better off without me than me being around being who I was. So, I sit here today to talk to you, thankfully. And so, now I'm in my 17th year, actually my 18th, I just celebrated 17 years. So my 18th year of sobriety. On my son's birthday, I was actually coming home from my hometown in Edmonton on a flight is the day I surrendered. And that's what I say to any, person that's suffering. You gotta surrender. You gotta say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you just got to say that's it. And it's a quiet, peaceful thing, because all those nights I used, being up on cocaine or crack cocaine and saying, okay, you know what, the depression, when you're out, you're laying in bed sweating, and I'm like, okay, that's it, I got to stop this. Well, guess what, 2 nights later you're doing it again. So that movie I played over and over for years. And at 41 years old, I finally got educated on, finding my peace. And that was that. So today I live, just before we got on this, I did my 15-kilometer hike that I do 5 days a week, and did my workout. And to all people suffering, exercise is a wonderful, replacement. That is my new drug. Being a former NHL player, obviously I did a lot of exercising, but now it's a beautiful thing. And I'm living a great life. As you said, I own a junior A team. I mentor kids. I do a lot of interventions. Now I'm that guy, taking people to the same place I went or other places, and I call it one life at a time. For people who want to check out my website, it's Jim Thomson's Dreams. You can get a feel for everything I do there. But right now, I feel at this point in my life, giving back is tenfold to taking. I've lived a great life. So, with all of my heart, what I do now is, try to one life at a time. And when people ask for my help, I'm there. I want to talk to kids, suffering people. And it's a beautiful thing. I always say this to somebody when they're struggling or depressed: go volunteer, go do something, like go give back, try something that you leave that situation, you feel worth. And it's my life is good. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Thanks so much, Jim. Yeah, I have huge respect for you. You and I kind of share like one similarity, and that's I grew up really poor, and I find maybe this is just my experience, but a lot of the kids who don't grow up in nice neighborhoods or in low income families and stuff like that, somehow the people that I know always seem to find the drugs and the alcohol and things like that. And because we have no outlets, and this, I know this show will air before, after this has happened, but in 2 days will be 8 years for me. When I surrendered and came into the rooms. And I probably should have gone to treatment, but I didn't. But I have a drill sergeant here at home that she makes sure that everything is going. And I remember walking into my first recovery meeting, and I turned the doorknob and I couldn't go in, and I was walking back towards the car, and she got out of the driver's side door and she looked at me and she said, "If you don't go in that door, you're not coming in this door." She kind of gave me an ultimatum. So I'm just blessed that you had people in your life that were willing to drive 4.5, 5 hours away from where you live to to take you to treatment. And you know, if that's not love, I don't know what is, right? Like that's some really good people in your life.
Well, I say this just quickly. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah,
That
no.
my ex-wife, the mother of my three children, she saved my life because if not for that intervention, I may have never survived it. And I thanked her for that. After we didn't make it as a couple. We got three beautiful children, but that was a changing of the guard in my life. And man, oh man, it's so nice to, as you know, to live a sober life, get up every day and feel great.
Mhm.
Five days a week in my past life, I was waking up struggling to survive through hangover, lack of sleep, or chemicals or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I think that we need to do a poll on, maybe we can get a bunch of recovering addicts and drunks and do a survey on what their last drink was, because my last drink was also Chardonnay white wine, and I used to buy the box stuff, because it was only $10. So I would spend $20 and buy two of them, and I was a 2-3 box wine guy a night on top of
yeah,
all of the opioids and everything else I was using on top of that. So yeah, I'm sitting here, you're sitting here, and you're probably thinking, like I'm very lucky to be sitting here, because there was so many times in my addiction that I would wake up the next day going, how am I still alive after that?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know. So I got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you if we have time. And you and I have spoken a little bit about this before, and I want to give the audience your opinion on it, because there's a wide range of opinions out there about it. Why, in your opinion, do you think legalizing weed was a bad idea?
Well, it's for me, it was pretty simple. Being a former, you know, person who was addicted to marijuana, I needed it. It was part of my everyday living. And I have one saying for it, when you're on dope, you're a dope. And I was reckless. I was, out of it, lazy, brain dead. And this was me. I'm not speaking for other people. And my opinion was the fact that you can now in vapes and all eat it and all these things. And I do some back work in schools, and it's destroying, in my opinion, the young kids because they have access to it. They're not like back when we smoked dope, we were terrified to get, arrested by the police. Like you would get charged back then in those days, right? And today it's all everywhere you go, you smell it. But the effect it has on these young kids, I said right away, this is going to destroy the youth. And people are, well, we need it for this, we need it for that. I believe in it for medical purposes when people are suffering. Okay, you're in major pain, all that stuff. I'd rather use honestly because I got addicted to OxyContin. OxyContin almost took my life. Okay, it was 4 years of torture. And for anybody out there watching Dope Sick or the movie on OxyContin took 500,000 people's lives. So if I was to take OxyContin or smoke marijuana or take edibles, whatever, to kill the pain, and I needed to kill the pain for medical reasons, this all day long. But just to have, just to be going out smoking, there's people that smoke all day long and teach their own. But for me, I was dead against it. I said, no, no, no. Because, working with the police and doing some back work, when I go and do volunteer work, there's the three-headed monster, they call it: texting and driving, drinking and driving, and now cannabis and driving. Yes, it was always there, but now that it's legal, it's a problem. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, and something that has been in the news as of recently is that Vancouver and BC out in there, they've decriminalized like things like cocaine and methamphetamines and things like that, and their death rates are spiking, like going crazy. Do you see that happening here in Ontario?
Oh my gosh, I hope not. I hope not because it ruined my life. I'm blessed to have my life back. But when I got into coke and crack cocaine and OxyContin and Percocets and whatever I could get my hands on, like I lost who I was. Like I wasn't me. Like it was just, it was me physically. It was not me mentally. And what that would do to, if it happened to come into Ontario, it would be devastating. Devastating. I mean, that's where I'd say, okay, our world is really changing at a fast rate. It's changing fast now, but man, oh man, if I could walk around with, I think it's 2.5 grams they're allowed there. If I could walk around with 2.5 grams of crack cocaine, smoking that all day, man, think of this. People run out of money. It doesn't matter how much you have; it's expensive. So now the crime is going to go up more, right? People are going to need it. You need to stay on this stuff. That's the problem. You're so addicted to it. You need to keep doing it. So that's a whole nother avenue. But I'm not in favor of it. If that's what you're asking me, not one bit.
Yeah.
Drugs are not good.
Yeah, I didn't.
Or alcohol.
Yes.
Sorry to say, alcohol ruined my life too. I became an alcoholic at 12, and no, it's not good.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd be in favor. I'm not in favor for it. I didn't think you'd be in favor for it. This question's kind of a two-parter, and I just thought of another question. But when you played in the NHL, did they have somebody that would come in and kind of talk to you guys about drugs or alcohol or things like that? They did.
So I'll give you an example. In LA, we had a former FBI agent, Lou McCleary. So what he would do is come in and tell us the good, bad, and the ugly. And one of the things we talked about was having a gun. You're in LA, and so his philosophy was, I recommend you not having one, but if you feel, your kids and all that, right? Domestic violence and all this, when there's a gun there, a lot of bad things happen. That's what he's explaining. When people never think they're going to use it, sometimes bad things happen. And so I never got a gun, but he came in and talked to us about everything, drugs and people who are going to take advantage of you. And back then it was just starting with the spiking of the drinks, and all these things that we were learning. And that's when Magic Johnson, came on TV and said HIV positive. So sex, all these things that you're swirling around and you're going, wow, okay, things are happening quick here, right? In the professional athlete world.
Yeah. So the second part to that question, being an NHL player, was it easier to get drugs as an NHL player because you had all this money, or do you think it was not any different?
I'm going to say this. If you want it, you will find it. If you got money, I didn't need to be an NHL player. Maybe I had more connections, but I knew exactly where to go or who to call, right? Because that's the little circle you live in, right? Yeah. And I say this, and I only tell my story. If it was me or if I had a guy that, I was using with or whatever, we know what we were doing. So I think you have more access to more. We go into a bar and I could say to a bar owner, hey, where do I find some Coke? Probably easier than just a guy sitting there maybe, because whatever. But it doesn't take, I could have cocaine in a half hour if I wanted it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
A world, as you know, a world of money talks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The more money you have, the more, like you said, the more I think maybe you can get into trouble, maybe a little more than somebody with no money, maybe. So like again, I respect you a ton. You've been a huge inspiration in my recovery. I see what you do. You talked a little bit about it. You started basically in a trailer park. You've built your life up to what it is now, which in my opinion is absolutely amazing. You're a role model for a lot of these kids. You just got a nod for the Hall of Fame, for the Aurora Hall of Fame. Congratulations. That's absolutely, fantastic. Take me through getting that phone call and what you were feeling when that happened.
Well, what's funny is when we moved to Aurora, 15 years, I think we're there just 14 years. But being a former NHLer, I was long before I owned the Tiger team. I was going into schools and, being who I was and volunteering and doing stuff at the homeless shelter and the women's shelter, all these different things. So when you set out, we talked earlier about giving back. And then, over years of service, I get this call saying, you're going to go into the Hall of Fame. And I was just like, wow. And I'll tell you this, it's, the NHL Hall of Fame, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, just to be recognized. It doesn't matter what level it is. And it was a beautiful night with my family. All my kids were there. I was honored, the people I was sitting in front of or standing in front of, many, many Hall of Famers. And it just really made me appreciate the amount that when I started thinking about all the hours I put into this, and I'm going, wow. And that's why I encourage people. I didn't start that to say, oh, I'm going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But I'll tell you what, Doug, getting the call and being recognized for my service was just a surreal call. It was really cool.
Absolutely, man. That's fantastic. Listen, I want to thank you for being on the show. What an amazing story. What an amazing, I'm going to call it a comeback. Like it's taken years, but you've definitely done it. Congratulations on your sobriety. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame. And I'm so glad you were able to join us today on Canadian Sober.
I thank you. I thank Deanne for having me, and keep up the great work, because these little, segments and these little minutes of this, and, we change one, I call it one life at a time, Doug, and you change one life. What you're doing is amazing stuff. Keep it up. And you never know when you're changing, when you get to that person, right? And when you save a life, you're saving a family. You're saving everybody around that, as you know. So keep doing what you guys are doing there, and anything you need, let me know.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Canadian Sober. I am so glad you were joining us today. We'll see you next week for another amazing show. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.